The walls weren't white anymore. They were red, deep, velvet red, and crawling with images of me. Not just headshots or selfies. I mean everything. Me as a baby in a plastic tub. Me in braces, holding a science fair ribbon. Me asleep on my college dorm couch with my mouth wide open. 100 tiny lives all plastered over silk walls like someone had skinned my memories and turned them into wallpaper. I blinked. My head pounded. My mouth was dry, and the air smelled like lavender, metal, and something floral that didn't belong. The sheets beneath me were Egyptian cotton, crisp, untouched. But I wasn't in the hotel suite in Miami anymore. I wasn't on vacation. I wasn't free. A soft voice floated in beside the sound of a stirring spoon. "Awake, darling?" Sarah Sterling. Hair perfectly combed, eyes full of manic calm. She stood beside the bed wearing a silk robe I didn't recognize, pale gold, embroidered with something in Latin, and cradled a steaming bowl like it held holy water. She raised the spoon gently, blew on it once, and brought it to my lips. I turned my head away. "What the hell is this?" She smiled, slow and satisfied. "You've been very sick, Bobby. Delirious. You kept calling out another woman's name." Her voice darkened by a thread. "Anne. Isn't that funny? Even with a heart like yours, you still have room to think about someone else." "I'm not playing games, Sarah." I tried to sit up. My limbs were heavy. My chest ached like something was clawing its way through it from the inside. "Our contract ended 3 months ago. I left. I sent you the papers. This is illegal. You kidnapped." Shoo, she pressed the spoon to my lips. I jerked back, but the smell hit me, honey, cinnamon, something strange and metallic underneath. "It's a love-binding tincture," she whispered. "Made with saffron, crushed violet petals, and a drop of my blood. If you ever even think of another woman, your heart will crack. You're insane." "No," she said softly, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear like we were still newlyweds. "I'm devoted." I laughed, but it came out cracked, like glass shattering underfoot. My chest spasmed. A hot, sharp pain lanced straight through my ribs like someone was sewing a needle through my lungs. I gritted my teeth. "What did you do to me?" Her smile didn't falter. "It's not permanent. I could reverse it. But you won't want that, will you? This way, you'll never forget who you belong to." My hands clawed at the silk sheets. "We had a deal. You wanted a fake husband. I played my part. I wore your ring, I sat through your family dinners, I kissed your cheek for the cameras. That was it. You don't own me." Sarah knelt beside the bed, resting her head on my chest like we were in a soft-focus drama. "The contract," she murmured. "I burned it, Bobby. Years ago. It was never real." "But the marriage license we signed at City Hall?" She looked up, her eyes glowing with something terrifying and sacred. "That was legally, spiritually, irrevocably real." I stared at the ceiling. My breath came in shallow waves. Every pulse of my heart echoed like a warning bell in my ears. Sarah placed the bowl on the nightstand and climbed onto the bed beside me, curling against my side with the comfort of a woman who'd done it 1,000 times before. "You're home now," she whispered. "You'll learn to stop fighting. I promise. One day soon, you'll love me back." And I couldn't tell if the thing pounding in my chest was fear, or the tincture doing its work. "My name is Bobby Reyes. I'm a professional stand-in. Not an actor, not a con man, just a specialist in a niche no one talks about. Fake boyfriend. Temporary fiancé. Disposable husband. My job is simple, play the perfect partner until the contract ends. Then walk away like I never existed." It started in high school when my best friend got dumped a week before prom. She was heartbroken. Her parents were rich. They handed me a crisp envelope and said, "Just make sure she smiles for photos." I did. I wore the rented tux, charmed her aunties, even slow danced like I meant it. When I got home that night, I opened the envelope. 2 grand. Cash. For one night of pretending. The moment I saw that money, I knew. By the time I hit college, I'd perfected the system. Everything was discreet. No attachments, no paper trails. I was the invisible patch for broken hearts and social optics. Rich girls with cheating boyfriends. Heiresses who needed a steady hand at galas. CEOs who didn't want to show up to award ceremonies alone. And was one of the first long-term gigs. Freshman year. Her real boyfriend had transferred to Italy for a year, and she didn't want to look abandoned. She found me through a friend of a friend. I played the role for 6 months, campus dates, hand-holding under library tables, family meet and greets via Zoom. The day her real boyfriend came back, I packed my things and left before sunrise. She wired me the final payment and a bonus. 5 stars. My rules are non-negotiable. Cash up front. No credit, no IOUs. I'm available, not accountable. I'm present, not invested. I don't sleep with clients. I don't fall for clients. The moment the contract ends, so do I. I thought I'd keep it up for a few years, stack enough cash to buy a lakeside place somewhere quiet, and vanish. Most people waste their 20s chasing love. I sold mine in carefully measured doses. Then came Sarah Sterling. I still remember the first time I saw her. It was a rainy afternoon in Manhattan, and I was wrapping up a brunch date gig with a socialite in Soho. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. The voice on the other end was sharp, cool, and direct. This is Sarah Sterling. I was given your number by Russell Elwood. He said you're the best at playing the part. I need a husband. 3 years. No intimacy, no questions. You'll live in my penthouse, attend required social functions, maintain appearances. The pay is $15,000 a month. Non-negotiable. I said yes before she finished. When I walked into her office the next day, she didn't even look up from her laptop. She just slid a stack of papers across the glass table. Standard NDA. Confidentiality clause. Behavior expectations. Schedule of events. Marriage license application. That last one gave me pause. You want a legal marriage? I asked, eyebrow raised. For appearances. Nothing more. It can be annulled after the term ends. I hesitated. She looked up then, just once. Eyes sharp. Unreadable. The kind of woman who was used to being obeyed. The pay is $15,000. Monthly. Wire transfers. You'll have an Amex Black for expenses. Private driver. Private room. If you break the contract early, you forfeit the final 3 months. The room smelled like lilies and power. I signed. She took me to City Hall herself, that very afternoon. No flowers. No guests. Just me, her, a bored clerk, and the soft scratch of pen against paper. From day one, Sarah was strictly business. She gave me a closet full of suits tailored to her preferred aesthetic. We dined together only when absolutely necessary. Her room was on the top floor of the penthouse. Mine was across the hall. If a guest was over, we played the part, soft smiles, knowing touches, perfectly timed glances. But when they left, the performance stopped. She wasn't cruel. She was just, precise. Cold. Like everything she did was calculated down to the second. For the first few months, I admired it. The detachment. The mutual understanding. It was perfect. No risk of feelings, no blurred lines. Just work. Clock in, smile, clock out. But Sarah didn't follow her own rules. She started showing up in the kitchen late at night, barefoot, robe tied loosely, asking if I wanted soup. She sat too close on the couch when the press sent photographers for our anniversary dinner. One morning, I came out to find her wearing one of my shirts, sipping coffee with a knowing smirk. At first, I thought it was just part of the image. Then came the small invasions: a lipstick mark on my pillow, a monogrammed robe hanging in my closet, my Amex card flagged for a purchase I didn't make, matching rings from a boutique jeweler in Paris. I confronted her once. "Too much," I said, tossing the receipt on the marble kitchen counter. We agreed on distance. She tilted her head. "Married couples wear rings. This is a job, Sarah. Remember?" She smiled and sipped her espresso. "Yes, darling. And you're doing beautifully." For 3 years, I told myself she was eccentric. Just another client with control issues. I ignored the way she stared when she thought I wasn't looking. I ignored the way she never dated, never invited guests over, never even let me leave the city unless she approved it. I convinced myself it was fine. That I'd walk away at the end, cash out, disappear. 3 months ago, the contract expired. I left a signed divorce petition on the foyer table, packed a bag, and flew to Miami. My final wire transfer never arrived. I emailed. I called. No reply. So I moved on. I booked a room at a beachfront hotel, reconnected with, and she was single again, wanted to meet. My heart didn't flutter. My chest didn't burn. I felt light. Free. Until I woke up in the red velvet room. Until Sarah stood over me with a spoon and a smile and whispered, "From now on, if you even think about another woman, your heart will crack." I should have seen it coming. The signs. The little slips. The moments I ignored. But Sarah Sterling had never wanted a fake husband. She wanted me. I didn't leave in the middle of the night. That would have been dramatic. Sarah didn't deserve drama, just clarity. A clean exit. The way I always did it. I packed my things while she was at a board meeting, folded my tailored suits like I'd never worn them, left the Amex black on the nightstand with a handwritten note, "Contract complete. No hard feelings. Please sign and file the divorce." I even left flowers in the hallway vase. White lilies. Her favorite. A professional touch. Then I boarded the first flight to Miami and didn't look back. But she never signed. I waited a week. Then 2. Then a full month. Still nothing. No confirmation. No communication. Just silence. At first, I brushed it off. She was probably busy. The woman ran 3 tech subsidiaries, 1 cosmetics empire, and a charity for reformed heiresses. She probably hadn't even seen the papers yet. I told myself it didn't matter. The contract had expired. I was free. Done. But my bank disagreed. One by one, my cards were declined. Amex, closed. Debit, frozen. Savings, drained. When I called the number listed under Emergency Legal Assistance, the man on the line told me calmly, "Per our records, Mr. Reyes, your account authorizations were legally revoked by your spouse. As you are listed under shared marital status, her clearance supersedes yours under the fiduciary clause she filed." I didn't understand the words. I just felt them, like slow drip acid. I emailed her. No response. I called her assistant. Disconnected. I even reached out to Russell, the second male lead in her orbit, a finance guy I'd always suspected was more loyal to her than he pretended. "Russell," I said, keeping my voice even, "tell her to sign the papers. She's stalling. And I'm not playing games." His pause was long. Then, "You should have never let her get close." I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I devised a plan. If she wouldn't leave gracefully, I'd give her a reason to push me away. She hated scandal. I'd stage the kind that screamed irreparable damage. I invited half the models in the hotel lounge to my VIP table. I let one of them smear lipstick across my collar. Let another kiss me on the cheek. I filmed just enough to catch the sparkle of champagne, the laughter, the glittering women in backless dresses pressed against me like I was a trophy. Then I chose the worst of the footage. A slow-motion kiss that never quite landed. A hand too high on my chest. A bottle being poured between my lips. I sent the photos in a manila envelope with a cleanly printed divorce petition. I wrote in black ink, infidelity. Emotional abandonment. Will not contest. No claim on assets. I thought it was done. I really did. I went to sleep in Miami, sunburned, smug, a little drunk. When I opened my eyes, I was staring at my own childhood. Not metaphorically. Literally. Photos of me at age 6, holding a trophy. Me at 8, hugging my dog. Me at 13, braces flashing. Me sleeping, shirtless, from an angle I couldn't explain. The room was velvet. Red. Air-conditioned just enough to sting. I tried to sit up. My body was limp. My mouth tasted like ash and mint. The door opened. Sarah walked in. Her heels clicked on the marble like piano keys. She wore a silk house dress, pale blush, like the lining of a luxury coffin. She looked at me like nothing was wrong. Like I hadn't left. "Good morning, darling." I tried to speak. My tongue didn't work. She reached the bed and sat on the edge. I saw the photos. Very dramatic. Very clever. But you misunderstood something. I blinked, trying to focus. Sarah leaned down. Her perfume was soft, maddeningly familiar. This marriage was never about the contract. That was bait. You were always mine, Bobby. Always. You drugged me, I croaked. She nodded, unashamed. You tried to run. I had to protect us. I looked past her, to the corner where my phone sat, dismantled. My wallet, empty. My passport, gone. I'll go to the police. Sarah chuckled. With what evidence? You signed everything. You moved into my house. You took my money. You slept under my roof. There are wedding photos in the press archives. Social records. Tax returns. You're my husband, legally and publicly. No judge. They don't need to know you wanted out. They'll only see you exploiting a powerful woman for money. And now? Now you're just an unstable man crying abuse because your wife still wants to love you. I couldn't breathe. You trapped me. Sarah stood, walked toward the curtain, and pulled it open. Sunlight streamed across the wall of photos. She turned to face me, backlit, eyes glowing like something ancient. No, Bobby, she said. I kept you. I don't know how long I laid there, body uncooperative, mind spiraling. The pain in my chest came in waves, sharp and slow, like dull razors under the skin. By the time I could stand again, she'd locked the door from outside. She left me water. Soup. And a note. Welcome home. I tore it in half. Then I crawled to the corner, stared at the photo of me at prom with my best friend, the very first client. It was a cruel, flawless full circle. Sarah had never planned to let me go. And the worst part? That damn marriage license was real. I'd always been the one in control. Contracts. Conditions. Clean exits. I built an entire identity around being unshakable, professional detachment wrapped in charm, never slipping, never breaking character. My clients paid for the illusion, and I delivered it flawlessly. They fell in love with the mask, and when it was time to go, I vanished without a wrinkle in the fabric. But in Sarah's world, I was no longer the one wearing the mask. She dressed me every morning. Literally. I'd wake to find outfits laid out at the foot of the bed, tailored shirts, trousers, cufflinks she'd picked herself. When I didn't move fast enough, she'd dress me like a doll, her fingers adjusting collars, smoothing sleeves, as if I were her personal mannequin. The worst part was how gentle she was. How practiced. As if she'd done this before. When I refused to speak to her, she started narrating our days aloud like we were part of a scripted domestic drama. "Darling, breakfast on the terrace today, yes? The weather is too beautiful to waste. And after that, I thought we'd visit that little bookstore you loved in Charleston." I had never told her about Charleston. But she knew. She knew about Charleston. About Asheville. About the restaurant in Austin where I took and pretended to be her devoted boyfriend for her father's fundraiser. She recreated everything. Scene by scene. Gesture by gesture. Only this time, the roles were reversed. She was the one pulling the strings. I was the one stuck behind the performance. I tried to escape. I really did. The first time was in Savannah. She took me there on what she called a healing tour. She wore white sundresses and straw hats, and held my hand like we were newlyweds on our 5th anniversary. At one point, I pretended to stop to tie my shoe. When she turned to look at a glass-blown art shop, I bolted. I didn't make it 2 blocks. The pain started as a twitch behind my ribs. Then it grew into a burning, twisting bolt that drilled straight through my chest, up my throat, and behind my eyes. My knees buckled. I collapsed right there on the cobblestone street, breathless, clawing at my shirt as if tearing it open would stop my heart from imploding. She found me 10 minutes later. Calm. Unhurried. Like she knew exactly where I'd end up. Sarah knelt beside me and touched my face. "Darling," she whispered, pressing a kiss to my temple. "The tincture works best when you try to run. It's a very jealous spell." I hated her. But I feared her more. Back in the hotel, she rubbed ointment on my chest, singing softly in French. I didn't understand the words, but the melody wormed its way into my head. She spoon-fed me soup like I was sick, like I was hers to care for, to repair, to shape. "Rest now," she said when I tried to stand again. "Your heart needs time to forget her." Her. Anne. The next time I thought of Anne, just her name, my vision blurred with agony. I was in the bath. The warmth of the water turned to ice inside me. My jaw clenched so hard I nearly cracked a molar. My limbs froze. My back arched. It felt like someone had poured liquid glass into my veins. Sarah burst in like she'd been waiting for the scream. "Oh, Bobby," she said with mock pity, holding my twitching face in her hands. "You're still so stubborn." I was losing. Not just physically. Mentally. Every time I fought, I paid. She called it the honeymoon phase. We traveled from coast to coast. Every place we visited matched a memory from my past. She had done her research. She knew my client history better than I did. And she warped each place into her own stage. In Charleston, she reenacted the park date I once sold to a politician's daughter. In Aspen, she pretended to twist her ankle just like Anne had during that ski trip we faked in college. This time, I carried Sarah down the slope, her arms around my neck, her breath warm on my skin. "You're stronger now," she murmured, burying her face into me. "See how we've grown?" I couldn't argue. My body was betraying me more than she was. I stopped trying to fight the clothing. The meals. The soft sighs of affection as she curled beside me each night. And the tincture, it always waited. One morning in New Orleans, I tested it. Just once. We were walking through a vintage market, surrounded by street performers and the smell of roasted coffee. I spotted a woman in the crowd, tanned skin, loose dark curls, a familiar profile. For a second, I let myself believe it was Anne. That she'd somehow followed me. That she'd seen through the press lies and found me. I blinked. Focused. Let the image form. Pain. White-hot, crashing, suffocating. I staggered forward into a stall, knocking over a rack of handmade scarves. I couldn't breathe. I gripped the display pole like it could anchor me to the world. Sarah was beside me in seconds. "Don't push it," she warned, brushing my hair off my forehead. "Your heart doesn't want her." I'm just helping it remember. You're not helping, I hissed through clenched teeth. Her voice softened, sugar wrapped in poison. Then why are you still here? I had no answer. Because running hurt worse. Because thinking of anyone else meant agony. Because the curse worked. Because my body, my instincts, my pride, were all fractured beyond repair. The worst part? She started to look different to me. Not in a monstrous way. In a familiar way. I began to anticipate the little hum she made when she stirred her tea. The way her lashes fluttered when she smiled. The warmth of her hand curling into mine while we walked past fountains, her thumb tracing circles on my wrist. Some nights, I'd wake up disoriented, gasping for air, and she'd be there, rubbing my back, whispering lullabies I never asked for. I used to see her as the cage. Now, I wasn't sure. Maybe she was just the lock. And maybe I'd already thrown the key away. The line between captivity and comfort blurred. And I hated myself for that. Charleston was too quiet. We walked down cobbled streets that looked like postcards, gas lamps glowing, old brick walls curling with ivy, the scent of caramel and salt drifting from shops at every corner. Sarah wore a soft blue sundress and held my hand like a prom date. No cameras. No assistants. Just us and the echo of our footsteps. I thought it was just another reenactment, another romantic script pulled from my work history. But this time, she didn't say much. She just looked at me like I was something ancient she'd finally found. At the center of town, we stopped at a fountain I didn't recognize. Sarah tugged my hand gently. Do you remember this place? I looked around. No. You never brought me here. She smiled. You did. I frowned. What? 5th grade. Bloomingdale's. My mom was distracted by a clearance sale. I got lost. I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. And then, you showed up. The air shifted. You wore a red hoodie. You had a milk mustache. And you asked me if I was okay. You took me to the help desk. Waited with me while they paged my mom. Gave me a cookie from your bag. I was still crying, and you said, "It's okay." Brave kids cry the loudest. I froze. That memory was buried somewhere deep. A long-forgotten afternoon from a blurry childhood. But now that she said it, I could see it. A little girl with 2 pigtails and big, terrified eyes. The department store lights too bright. My backpack sticky with chocolate wrappers. That was you? I asked, stunned. She nodded slowly. You were the only person in the world who didn't treat me like a problem. Like noise. That was 20 years ago. I never forgot. She let go of my hand, walked to the edge of the fountain, and touched the water like she was touching a memory. I went home and wrote your name in my diary. Bobby, red hoodie, brave smile. I used to draw our wedding invitations in crayon. I told everyone I'd marry a boy named Bobby when I grew up. The back of my neck prickled. After that, I looked for you. Everywhere. I even ran away once, just to see if you'd come find me again. You were a child. She turned to me, eyes glinting. And you were perfect. That's not love, Sarah. That's fixation. She tilted her head. Isn't that what love is? Just the longest obsession you never grow out of? I didn't respond. She stepped closer. When I found out what you did for a living, stand-in, paid romance, I knew I had to be clever. I couldn't just ask you to be mine. You'd say no. You'd call it crazy. So I watched. I waited. Her voice dropped, almost reverent. And was never random. Neither was the girl in Austin. Or the ski trip in Aspen. I made sure they found you. I nudged things. Created opportunities. Watched every move you made. Because I wanted to understand your type. Your timing. Your habits. I felt my stomach turn. You studied me? For years, she said. And was my best friend in college. I told her to hire someone to make her ex jealous. I gave her your number. She didn't know? She thought it was just a referral. I never told her who you were to me. Not then. I staggered back a step. You built my entire career. I built your path to me. My chest tightened, not from the tincture this time, but from the horrifying weight of her truth. Every job I'd taken. Every well-paid illusion. Every false romance. It hadn't been random. I hadn't been rising through the ranks of a secret industry. I had been walking a path she carved in silence. Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out a photo. Us. As children. The grainy shot showed me, grinning, front tooth missing, holding a cookie in one hand and a girl's tiny wrist in the other. Her eyes were red from crying. But she was looking at me like I was a miracle. I paid a private investigator to find it, she said softly. Cost me 10 grand. You're insane. I'm loyal, she corrected. Loyal enough to wait 2 decades. Loyal enough to build a perfect life you couldn't say no to. I never said yes. But you never said no. Not when I asked you to marry me. Not when I signed the contract. Not when I kissed you at City Hall. You paid me, I snapped. You lied to me. You set traps. And you fell into every single one, she said, voice low and pleased. Silence pressed between us like a wall. Then she spoke again, almost tenderly. You were never pretending, Bobby. That's why I knew. You weren't just acting when you pulled out my chair. When you laughed at my father's jokes. When you rubbed my wrist that night I sprained it on the stairs. My mouth was dry. I was doing my job. No, she said. You were mine. And you always will be. I looked down at the photo. The boy in the red hoodie didn't know what he'd started. And the girl with pigtails? She never stopped looking. The gala was suffocating. Strings of gold lights coiled across marble columns. Diamond necklaces glittered like blades. The clinking of glasses and shallow laughter made the air heavy, and I stood beside Sarah like a statue in a tailored tux, smiling when she did, nodding when required. She was radiant that night, sleek black gown, sharp heels, eyes lined like war paint. Her hand never left my arm, fingers curling just a little too tightly. She introduced me as her husband, her love, the man who rescued her heart when she thought no one could reach it. I watched her sell the fantasy I used to own. Except it wasn't fantasy anymore. I hadn't thought about it in weeks. Or escape. Or the tincture. The ache in my chest that once flared like a warning bell had gone quiet, eerily, dangerously quiet. The absence of pain wasn't freedom. It was something worse. It was peace. I didn't remember when the surrender happened. Maybe it was Charleston. Maybe it was that story about the red hoodie. Maybe it was the way she curled against me in her sleep now, breathing slow, steady, like she believed the world couldn't touch her as long as I was there. Somewhere between resistance and acceptance, I'd stopped pulling away. I noticed things I shouldn't. The softness of her hands. The way she always ordered 2 of everything in case I didn't like mine. The way she whispered my name in sleep, not with obsession, but longing. Like she was still afraid I might disappear. I hated how I noticed. And I hated that I didn't hate her anymore. She excused herself to get water midway through the gala. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then I heard the sound, glass shattering. I turned. She was on the floor. Pale. Limp. Her hands shaking, eyes rolled upward. Everything stopped. I was by her side in seconds, screaming her name, my voice cutting through the music and murmurs. Her lips were blue. Someone call a damn ambulance. People moved around me like shadows. I gathered her into my arms, trembling, heart in my throat, memories flooding through like a film reel, her smile when she saw me in the mornings, her smug lectures, her soup, her laughter on the train to Savannah. Stay with me, Sarah, I whispered, pressing my cheek to her cold forehead. You don't get to leave. Not like this. Not now. The hospital was a blur. Bright lights. Sharp questions. I answered everything. I handed over IDs. Signed forms. I threatened to sue the desk nurse if she didn't let me stay with her. They wheeled her away, and I sat in the waiting room, my fists clenched so tight my nails dug crescent moons into my palms. For the first time since the tincture, I felt something worse than pain. I felt panic. The doctor walked out an hour later, clipboard in hand, his expression unreadable. Mr. Reyes? I stood so fast my chair toppled behind me. She's stable, he said. Hydrated now. Her blood pressure dropped from exhaustion and nutrient deficiency. We've run full labs just in case. I exhaled, breath trembling. He hesitated. Also, congratulations. Your wife is almost 2 months pregnant. I blinked. The world didn't just stop, it shifted. She's what? Pregnant, he repeated. Healthy heartbeat. No complications for now. We'll monitor her closely due to the collapse, but the baby's fine. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stood there, time stalling like a frozen wave above my head. A nurse appeared beside him. You can see her now. I nodded, numbly. Sarah lay in a private room, covered in white sheets that made her skin look almost translucent. And 4 fed into her arm. Her lips were dry. Her hair was disheveled. She looked nothing like the woman who ruled boardrooms and destroyed escape plans. She looked small. Human. She opened her eyes as I stepped closer. Bobby, she whispered, trying to sit up. Don't, I said, voice softer than I'd ever heard it come out. Don't move. I sat on the edge of her bed. Her eyes searched mine. Did I? You're fine, I said. The baby's fine. Her lips parted. The baby? I nodded once. The doctor told me. She blinked rapidly. I didn't know. I just felt strange. Tired. I thought it was from dragging you everywhere. Her hand drifted to her stomach. Slowly. As if touching glass. Really, she whispered. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. I reached out. Covered her hand with mine. Felt the heat of her skin. The soft, frightened tremble in her fingers. We're having a baby, I said. The words didn't feel like surrender. They felt like a decision. Sarah stared at me, tears pooling in her eyes. Are you mad? I shook my head. No. Scared? Yes. But staying? I swallowed hard. Yes. She let out a shaky breath. One that cracked in the middle. Her eyes closed and the tears slipped free, trailing silently into her hairline. I didn't plan this, she whispered. The curse, yes. The games, yes. But this? I didn't mean to trap you like this. I leaned forward, brushing her hair back. Then don't call it a trap. She looked up. I nodded slowly. Call it a twist in the contract. A sound left her lips, half laugh, half sob. I love you, she said, almost desperately. I know I don't deserve to say that. But I do. I always have. I pressed her hand gently, felt the heat beneath it. I know. She stared at me like I was a dream she didn't trust yet. Like I might vanish. But I didn't. I stayed all night. Pulled the chair close. Held her hand while she slept. Rubbed circles into her wrist when she stirred. And as dawn painted soft gold across the hospital floor, I found myself staring at the curve of her belly, not in fear, but in something frighteningly close to wonder. The curse hadn't flared once. No knives in my chest. No choking. No reminders to obey. Because for the first time I wasn't thinking about Anne. Or freedom. Or escape. I was thinking about her. And the future. Ours. The penthouse didn't feel like a stage anymore. Gone were the carefully arranged centerpieces for press photos, the silent tension between shared glances, the waiting to exit energy I'd always carried like luggage. The place was still pristine, marble countertops, fresh lilies in every corner, and shelves of curated literature no one ever touched, but now it echoed with something rawer. Sarah Sterling's laugh at 3 a.m. The shuffle of slippered feet and the hum of lullabies whispered off-key. My voice reading baby books I never expected to open. The rhythmic flutter of a tiny heartbeat during our weekly ultrasounds. I learned her cravings before she did. She hated morning smells now, especially coffee, but craved watermelon at midnight and sour plums at noon. Her moods changed like weather, and every storm she threw at me, I absorbed with the strange calm of a man who knew he wasn't going anywhere. We argued, of course. Over which prenatal playlist made the baby smarter. Over the brand of diapers she'd ordered before the baby was even viable. Over whether the name Lillian sounded too innocent. Every fight ended the same, her huffing dramatically, one hand on her hip, the other protectively cradling her growing belly like a loaded threat. "See, baby," she'd pout. "Daddy's being mean to us again." That was my breaking point every time. I'd sigh, walk over, rest both hands on her sides, and kiss the spot just below her navel. "Fine. You win." She always did. I stopped counting how many times I said that. How many times I meant it. Even our families began circling us like two planets realigning. Her mother sent care packages stuffed with luxury baby clothes. My dad started texting me dad jokes. Our living room became neutral ground for mismatched relatives who once couldn't imagine us at the same table. At night, I'd lie with my head resting on her stomach, humming nonsense while our baby kicked like it was already dancing. I started dreaming about the future, not about escape, but about rooms filled with toys, scraped knees, tiny giggles, and the warmth of something earned the hard way. One evening, she fell asleep mid-conversation, curled on the couch, a hand tucked protectively under her bump. I looked at her for a long time. The woman who had drugged me, cursed me, hunted me, and loved me more fiercely than anyone ever had. I didn't see my captor anymore. I saw my wife. My family. I reached for my phone and scrolled through the pictures I used to stage my infidelity, the ones I'd sent her hoping she'd let me go. They looked so pathetic now. All that noise. All that grasping at freedom. And for what? I deleted them all. A few months later, she went into labor at dawn. She barely made a sound, just clenched my arm hard enough to leave bruises and whispered, "Now." The drive to the hospital was a blur of red lights I ignored and her breath hitching in the passenger seat like the world was cracking in half. She didn't scream. Not once. She just kept her eyes locked on mine and muttered things like, "You better not faint," and, "This is your fault too." She gave birth to a girl. Tiny, furious, perfect. They laid her in my arms, and something inside me dissolved. All the professionalism, all the old codes of conduct, all the rules I used to live by, vanished like smoke. I looked at this little person, half her, half me, and I realized, I didn't just stay. I chose this. I chose them. Sarah cried when she held her. Really cried, no performance, no manipulation. Just soft, wet sobs into her daughter's blanket. I kissed her forehead, held them both, and whispered, "You did it." "No," she whispered back, eyes shining. "We did." Weeks passed in a blur of sleepless nights, formula calculations, and quiet moments that broke me in all the right places. My past faded like a curtain closing on a long, exhausting play. No more stage names. No more fake relationships. I was Bobby Reyes. Husband. Father. And for once, I didn't want a clean exit. One afternoon, I sat with our daughter asleep on my chest, her tiny fingers curled into my shirt. Sarah sat across from me, sipping lukewarm tea, her robe draped open, hair in a chaotic bun. Her eyes flicked to mine over the rim of the cup. "You've gotten soft." I smirked. "You like it." She set her mug down and tilted her head. "Admit it. You're happy." "I'm terrified." "Same thing." I looked down at the baby's face, so peaceful, so undeserved, and then back at the woman who'd burned my life down just to build a new one with me. I raised an eyebrow. "So," I said casually, "the curse, it was fake, right?" Sarah's smile was slow. Beautiful. Familiar. And then her eyes changed, just a flicker. That same flicker I saw in Charleston. That flicker I'd seen right before she whispered about binding tinctures and blood spells. She leaned forward. "If you ever cheat, Bobby," she murmured, "I'll bring it back. And it will dance in your heart like fire." I stared at her, and then, God help me, I laughed. I laughed until my chest ached. Then I pulled her into me. Pressed a kiss to her temple. Let her curl against my side like she always did. The baby stirred but didn't cry. The sunlight painted gold across the nursery wall. Outside, the world kept turning. But I didn't care. I was her prisoner. But for the first time, I didn't mind the sentence.